Hello, and welcome to our show, Lead Me Home. I am Mary Beth Maestre. Last August, I interviewed two Focus missionaries that were here for 2 weeks in our country of Belize, helping out. I think they were invited by the souls from Divine Mercy, the nuns and the priests. In doing that interview, I had a little introduction. So we're going to show that introduction now, and we'll continue on from there. Let's have a look. It says, "This is a generation in crisis of identity, of purpose, and of belief. Faced with so many distractions, acts of violence, empty pleasures, and a loss of faith in God, they are losing hope. For the sake of so many souls, the joyful message of Jesus Christ's life and salvation needs to be shared now more than ever." And the founder of an organization called Focus, his name is Curtis Martin. He is the founder and CEO of Focus. Realized these words were so true, but also realized if he was going to work with this situation, he needed help to do this. And so he founded an organization called the Fellowship of Catholic University Students, where students on campuses and at universities could do what we call evangelizing, that Pope John Paul II, as well as Pope Benedict XVI and Pope Francis, has been recommending and advising all of us to do. We are all called, we are all disciples. But Curtis Martin, on meeting Pope John Paul II and telling him of his plans, Pope John Paul told him 2 words. He said, "Be soldiers." I mentioned Curtis Martin as the founder and CEO of Focus Missionaries. And Curtis, like I also mentioned, visited with Pope John Paul II. And the words that he was impressed with were just 2 words given by John Paul II. You heard them. Be soldiers. So once again, I have with me one of these soldiers. They call themselves a Focus missionary. So I have a Focus missionary on the first part of the show. And on the second part, I'll have a student missionary. Is that what we're getting it right? The words disciple, missionary, focus, a student missionary. So we'll start off with this soldier, as Pope John Paul II explained, and she will tell us about her life and about her time as a member, as being a Focus missionary. So let me now introduce Avery Hembrook, and she'll be telling us her story. So welcome, Avery. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, like I said, it was last August that we had 2 Focus missionaries. Okay. So it's so nice. I think they're going to start coming on a regular basis. It'd be nice if you have them 2-3 times for the year. Yeah. So let's start off, for the sake of the viewers, once again, just your history, where you were born, your schools, what your faith was during that time.
Yeah, definitely. So I was born and raised in Wisconsin, so in the U.S., and I was raised in the Catholic faith because I went to a Catholic private school from preschool until 8th grade. And so my parents' background a little bit is that my dad grew up Catholic, but wasn't a practicing Catholic. And then my mom, she always knew she wanted to raise her kids in the faith. And so that's why she sent me and my 2 brothers to the private school in our little small town of Delavan. And so, it was at St. Andrew's where my faith, that's really where the foundation started. With my morals and values and beliefs, that's where they were really formed. And so I grew up we went to Mass once a week with the school. So then I didn't always go on Sundays. My family wasn't always, it just wasn't the most important thing.
Sure.
But we were definitely surrounded by it. It just wasn't centered around it.
So, but you still got to Mass, like you said, because the school took you to encourage you to go to Mass. Just didn't do it on Sundays. Okay, then you graduate from primary school into high school, and then you have some mission trips. So go ahead and explain that.
So after graduating from the private school in 8th grade, I went to the public school in my hometown. And so it was during this time that I still continued my Catholic faith journey. I continued with CCD classes so that I could be confirmed my junior year. And so during high school, I went on different mission trips throughout the summer. So my church, they worked through an organization called Catholic Heart Work Camp. So what this is it's mission trips for high school students, and it's all over the U.S. And so I went to 4 different states, 4 different years.
Oh, nice.
So each year of high school, I went on this mission trip.
This was during the summer?
This is during the summer, yep. So it was a week-long trip. And it was really at these trips where, each time I went, my faith just continued to grow. Just learning more things about the faith, seeing others, having that community of people was really helpful in that.
And I think we need to understand that, like you said there, the community of people. We can't do this on our own, can we?
No.
You know, we all think, well, I'll go to my room and talk to God. But that's part of it too. But it's not until you're with others and you see their faith and especially for those who are a step above you, then you start learning from them. So you would go, so 4 years you did these trips. And that's exactly, same thing again. This started off from your parish. So wherever you went, just what was 1 or 2 things you did when you were on those trips? What's something you did?
So, each mission trip was very different. And so most of mine, though, were doing physical labor. So going into people's homes. And I remember one guy, he was in a wheelchair. And so he couldn't paint his walls. They hadn't been painted. So we were able to paint for him.
Lovely.
And then also do some weeding out in the yard because he wasn't able to do that. So just cleaning up and doing that. So it was kind of half physical labor, but then half of a retreat in a sense, where it was a lot to be filled by the missionaries who worked for this organization.
As well. Okay, continue on now. You're going to graduate and go on to college.
And so also I want to mention too, in high school, even though I was going to CCD classes and I was striving for my Catholic faith, God also, he wasn't the center. He was definitely there and I was trying, but he wasn't my everything at that time. And so
we all know that. That place.
Yes, it happens to a lot of us. So then I graduated from high school and I went to the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse for college, getting a degree in recreational therapy, which is working with people who have disabilities, whether that be physical or mental, and rehabilitating them through leisure. And so right away, when I went to La Crosse, I was I want to get involved in a Christian organization. Because of the mission trips, I knew how important community was and having friends that could build you up. So I got involved with an organization called Cru. And so Cru is a Christian organization that leads Bible studies. It meets once a week to kind of form you and has speakers. And it was wonderful. I loved it. I was involved with them for 3 years. My first year, I was part of a Bible study. And then the 2 other years, I was on leadership with them. So I led Bible studies.
So like you said, but not only it's Catholic, Christian.
Yep. So it had all different types of Christian. It was just kind of more of an umbrella. And so, it was at that time in college when I really started to question my Catholic faith. The question came up of, am I Catholic because I was raised in the church, or am I Catholic because that's where the truth was?
Let's stop there like that. Am I Catholic because I was raised in the church. I guess all of us can ask ourselves that question. Am I Catholic because I was raised in a Catholic church? So many of us call ourselves Catholic, but for the same reason.
Yeah.
You're carrying your parents' faith.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
Or the other half, or am I Catholic because what? It is the truth?
Because that's where the truth is.
Just where the truth is.
Yeah.
All right. So you were questioning, weren't you?
Yes.
Go ahead, sure.
I was definitely questioning. Especially because at that time, I was seeing all my friends who were born in the faith, like in the Catholic faith, fall away.
Yeah.
Nobody was practicing anymore. And so many people that I met through Crew, their story was that they were raised Catholic, they came to college, and they fell away. And so at that time in my life, I was like waiting for that moment that I was finally going to let go of the Catholic faith. Okay. Like I was almost like anticipating, like, when is this going to happen?
Your turn.
Yeah. And so, I started to really dive in to going to different churches, trying to figure out, like, what is it that I want? Like, where is Jesus in all of this? So Sunday mornings, I would usually go to a non-denominational church, or more like a mega church. And I loved their worship music. They, had amazing music, amazing speakers. But every time I left, I just felt like something was missing, and I knew something was missing. And so at night, the Newman Center, which was the Catholic church on my campus, they had a later service for students. And so
a mass.
Yeah. And so I always found myself also going to Newman on Sundays too. So I was going to 2 different services. And at that time, when I did go to the Catholic mass or service, I just felt peace about it. Like I felt it was complete, which I wasn't feeling at the other churches.
You felt the emotions at the mega churches, huh?
Yes.
Because they know how, like you said, with the music and the speakers and the size of it.
Yeah.
You just get up and you just all emotion.
It's all emotion.
But then when you came, so I like this, viewers. She went to church to these big churches, these big services, and on a Sunday morning. But then go to mass on a Sunday evening.
Yes.
And with completely different sets of emotions.
Yeah. Yep.
So when you came to the Catholic Church, you didn't have that big high that you had earlier.
Yeah.
It was more of a peace.
Yeah.
And I think you had said also like you belonging.
Belonging.
Just you were home.
Like it was home. Yeah, exactly.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that now? Because remember, you're still searching.
Yeah. So this kind of went on for 3 years of just that. Oh my gosh, what do I do? And it became my 3rd year of college, so I was a junior at the time, and it was fall semester, and I remember just being very frustrated, like, I need to figure this out, like just really asking, Lord, where are you? Like, where are you in this? And so I started to think back to high school, like, what helped me in my faith? What helped me, like, figure things out? And I remembered the mission trips that I went on, like, how much they impacted my life. So I decided, well, I'm going to go out of the country and I'm going to go on a mission trip.
Okay.
So I went into the Google search engine and I just typed in spring break mission trips. And Focus was the first one to pop up.
Okay.
So I decided to go to Peru. I didn't know anything about the trip. I didn't know anybody that was going. But I knew that this was right.
What you wanted to do.
Yeah. So I flew to Washington, D.C. because I went with George Washington University, some of the students from that campus.
Okay.
And then there was also a whole group of us that were random, so like me, where we just signed up for the trip.
So all meeting for
we're all meeting for the first time.
Some of you all meeting for the first time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it was on this trip where things really started to become clear for me. So the first thing that really impacted me was seeing people my own age practicing their faith and like being excited about it. Because as I mentioned before, I had only seen and heard about people falling away from the Catholic faith.
Yes, falling away. And the statistics show that.
Yes. And so for the first time, all of a sudden I was seeing these people and I was like, what? Like I didn't know people my age still were Catholic. Like I had no idea this was going on. And also seeing like the way that the Focus missionaries lived their life, I remember just looking at them and saying like, they have the thing that I've been searching for. They have that joy. They have that like completion that like I haven't been having. And so yeah, that was truly amazing to see, just the way that all these students and missionaries were living their life and realizing that that's what I've been searching for.
Okay, so here you are in Peru, and you're going to have a turning point now.
Yes.
So you've been already building yourself up with what you've been seeing with all those around you.
Yeah.
And now part of the practice, of course, is going to, as a missionary, is going to Mass, going to adoration. Tell us about that turning point.
Yeah. So during the mission trip, each day we had an opportunity for adoration and confession. And so I had not been to confession since like years. I mean, years it had been.
What, probably when you made your first confession with Holy Communion.
Probably. Yes. And so I was very nervous about it, and I continued to tell myself, I'm not going to go. Like, you're not going to go. You don't know how to even say confession anymore. Like, the priest is going to think you're crazy. You haven't been there in years. Just all these lies that were trying to keep me away from going. So one day, it was towards the end of the trip, because each day I was like, no, you're not going, and I didn't go. But then, it was towards the end, and all of a sudden, during adoration, I just got up and I started walking towards the confessional. And I was trying to hold myself back. I was like, no, like, don't go, you can't do this. Like, I was like holding down my legs, trying to stop myself. But God was like, no, you're going. And so I went into the confessional, and I just remember the priest just asked if he could lay his hand on my shoulder. And it was at that moment where I realized that, like, that was God. That was his hand on my shoulder. That was his loving touch that I needed so badly. And it was also at that confessional where something just opened up inside of me, where I realized that the Catholic faith is so beautiful, and we are given so many gifts and opportunities with the sacraments. Because for so long, especially in high school, I just looked at it as it's just rules, it's limitations, it's keeping me from something. But it's the complete opposite.
Just opposite.
It's unleashing you for everything. It's freeing
you.
Yeah. And so it was during that confessional where God just completely shook me and made me realize these things and opened my eyes to the beauty of the faith. And I was just so on fire after this. I was so excited.
Oh, it's just lovely to hear this.
Yeah.
Go ahead. So with that.
Yeah.
Then you come back to Wisconsin. The trip comes to an end, of course.
So the trip comes to an end. I just have all these amazing experiences that happen, especially the confessional, and just the love that the priest was able to pour into my heart. And so I go back onto campus at La Crosse, and I stopped doing crew because I realized, I need to dive deeper into my Catholic faith, and I need to surround my people by these young Catholics who can help me on my journey too. So I contact the Focus missionaries, because we had missionaries on our campus that I never knew about. And I was like, I want to be a missionary. Like, this is what I want to do. And so they brought me in very quickly. I started doing Bible studies. I joined discipleship, which is like a one-on-one mentorship that Focus does.
Okay.
So I got very involved with that. And
so they saw someone, saw a live one. Okay, grab that one quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't let her get away.
Yep.
And so they give you your own discipler.
Yes.
To take over.
Yep. So that she could walk with me on my journey. Especially because I did just have such a desire to become a Focus missionary, and so she really helped prepare me for that, and to kind of help figure out is this what you want to do?
Okay, we'll stop there.
Yes.
Isn't that a beautiful story? How God works with every one of us,
Yeah.
all in different ways. Yeah. Okay, so Avery has now joined Focus not as a missionary, yes. She was a student at that time. We'll stop here, and then I'll invite a student missionary to come on, and then at the end we'll bring both back on to continue what they've been doing here in Belize. We'll be right back.
It is an inescapable fact. Every man's life ends the same way. It is only the details of how he lived and how he died that distinguish one man from another. There was one man who understood this reality and distinguished himself in a big way. That man's name was Ernest Shackleton. In 1914, this polar expert decided to conquer the unknown. He set out into the deep in pursuit of a great adventure, to be the first one ever to cross the continent of Antarctica. This endeavor would truly test the limits of his endurance. He couldn't do it alone. Legend has it, Shackleton took out an ad in 1914. Men wanted for hazardous journey, low wages, bitter cold, long hours of complete darkness, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. He only needed a small crew for this enterprise, yet he received 5,000 responses. 5,000 men ready to die, rather than to suffer a dull, monotonous existence. Shackleton's ad promised them something, a chance to do something great with their lives. Do we dare to venture into the deep, like Shackleton and his men? How are you going to live?
Hello and welcome back. Well, we heard Avery's story as a focus missionary. And even though Pope John Paul II's words were be soldiers, they were not limited to only focus missionaries. To tell the truth, it applies to each and every one of us. But along with the focus missionaries come student missionaries. And I have one here with me. This is Daniel Edwards. So let me now introduce him to you, and he'll explain what a student missionary is. Daniel, good to have you here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
A student missionary.
So basically, the idea is that I'm one of the students who's on the campuses that Focus goes to, and they help try to get involved, try to help form their faith, and at certain points, they'll invite us to come along on these mission trips. So like this mission trip here to Belize was led by Focus missionaries, but it's mostly students who they've invited in to try to help form them, to grow deeper.
Okay, so like Avery explained, she was invited to the one in Peru, and they got her immediately.
Yep.
Let's see what's going to happen to you.
Yep.
So let's go ahead with your story. Again, a bit of your history, where you were born, and just, like Avery, what schools you went to, and your faith during that time.
Yes, so I was born in Nashville, Tennessee, and I was born into a very Catholic family. Like, my dad's a deacon in the church. He has been one for like 19 years or something like that. My mom was born and raised Catholic. So me and my two siblings, we grew up learning the faith in pretty much everything we did. And then, of course, because we were raised in a Catholic family, we went to a Catholic school for grade school. And one of the things that I noticed there is that I had a really good grasp on what the Catholic faith was, but I didn't have that connection to it. It was, I could tell you all about it. Like, I knew how to pray the rosary at a young age because I was taught, but I didn't know what it meant to pray the rosary. And so like that happened all throughout grade school. And then it was kind of a similar thing in high school. I went to a Catholic high school, but one of the things I've noticed is, just especially with teenagers in the modern culture, it's like you can say you're a Catholic, but that doesn't mean you practice your Catholicism. Like, my Catholic school had maybe 50% Catholics, but most of those were Catholics in name only.
Yes, yes. And that's not only for the young ones. That's for us adults as well.
Yeah.
So it's just across the board about calling ourselves Catholics, but what do we mean by that? And you said that your father taught at that school?
Yes, my dad, he taught theology, I think specifically scripture when I was there.
Okay.
So he would teach, so I got to learn a lot of that stuff from him. And I feel like, especially throughout high school, I was really well intellectually formed in the faith. I could tell you all about it. I could argue the reasons for the faith, but I didn't have that strong
hadn't
belief.
gone to the heart yet.
Yes.
Got to
Like I could argue someone all day long about why they should be a Catholic, but I didn't know in my heart why you should be a Catholic.
Be a Catholic. Uh-huh.
And
Okay, yeah. That's like similar to Avery's story. She didn't know. That's what she was looking for, that
Yes.
truth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she was searching. In your case, you had it from you were born. We just kind of inherited it into the family. You carried your family's faith, like I said. Now, in Avery's case, she had to go in search of that sort of thing. Okay, so you at high school, you're going to move on from there after high school?
So one of the things that I noticed, like especially at the end of high school, was I had this group of friends. Like I was close with them, but many of them weren't Catholic. Like they'd be Protestant, and even if they were Protestant, they weren't practicing Protestant. So as I went into college, I went to Vanderbilt University, also in Nashville. I was just kind of worried going in. I was like, is this faith going to be a part of me? Because I'm going to a school that's not Catholic, that's not even Christian.
Right.
And recently my friends haven't even been Catholic. So I've always thought of college as sort of a turning point. It's like you get to decide, is this faith your own,
Yes.
or is it the faith of your parents?
That's sad. That's where they break away, yeah? Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
So right at the beginning of freshman year, I became friends with a bunch of the people who lived in the same dorm as me. Like, we all enjoyed playing games together and doing card games and stuff, but there wasn't any faith aspect to it. They were a mix of all different faiths or no faith at all. And I enjoyed hanging out with them, but it just kind of seemed like I wasn't going the direction that I was supposed to be going. So after about one semester of college, I started kind of trying to get involved in the Catholic faith a little more. I met a couple people at Mass who seemed to actually be living out that faith. They seemed to be my age, to not have their parents there, but still want to engage. And I was sort of intrigued by that. It was like, why would you put so much effort into this when you don't have to? I mean,
If your parents aren't there with the whip.
yeah, like
so to
like I'd still go to Mass, but I wasn't going to like Mass during the week. I wasn't going to these outside events to help form your faith and stuff. But I started getting some of these friends, and they would invite me to these events that the Catholic Center was having. Like we would have like a Christmas party or something at the same time that all the other Christmas parties are happening, to make sure that people weren't going to these like drinking parties and stuff.
The secular ones that were
Yes.
taking place on campus, huh?
It was almost like we were having parties to combat that. We're like, here's God, you can go there or you can come here.
Yeah. Oh.
And so I started coming to those, and it was really forming to have a bunch of people my age just getting together to pray rosary at night, getting together to go hear a talk about the faith, and just, I started seeing that, and I was like, I kind of want to be a part of that. But I still didn't have the emotional feel to it. It was still kind of like, oh, like, this seems like a good group to be around. Like, they're a good influence. But it didn't necessarily bring me into that faith completely. So one of the things that did was, there was a retreat that we held every semester that was called Awakening. It was, you would go on it as a retreater the first time, and then after that, you would work it and try to like help the people who were going on it.
Okay. So you started off, and then you help others to continue on.
Yes. And so like I'd gone on it freshman year, and it's kind of the same thing. I'd been like, oh, this was a good experience, but it didn't touch my heart. It actually wasn't until the 5th time that I went on my junior year when there was, I think someone was giving a talk, and it was basically, they were talking about all the issues that they have in their life and kind of the struggles that they go through that they have to bring to God. And I've just been realizing that's what like all the talks have been so far. And I know these people, I'm friends with them by now. I've known them for 2 years, and I want to help them. But I don't have the words to say. I don't know what to do to help them. Like, we've all been there. And then right after that, we went into adoration, and I was praying. And sort of what I started praying through was, that's how God feels. That's when he looks down at us, he loves us. He wants to help us. He sees us struggling with our sin, struggling with our problems. And he does know what to do. But we're not letting him.
Yes.
So often, we're struggling and we feel we have to do this alone. I can't let someone else know about my vulnerability, even God. But he can help, he knows what to do. And that just sort of got me thinking, like, maybe my prayer shouldn't be about help me, God. It should be like, work through me to help others. because if they're not letting God into their heart, then it's hard for him to help them except through the people around them. And that's one of the best ways that we can bring God to others, is just to be there for them and to trust God to make it work for them.
Oh, this is so profound, Daniel. I'm listening. I'm taking it all in. I hope you are as well. How God touched you. I mean, you were seeing, and like you said, it happens to all of us. People giving their testimonies. This is what this show is all about. Testimonies.
Yes.
And that with people with their issues, and how God came in and turned their lives around. And so you at a very young age, for me and my mind, you're still a college student. You're getting this message. You're hearing these issues, and you want to do something about it.
Yes, and
very deep. Okay, so how are you going to deal with that?
well, first of all, this was a very shocking experience for me, because a lot of my friends know I'm not an emotional person at all. And suddenly I was having this feeling in my heart, and I was like, what is this? Why am I having this if I haven't had it before? I've been a Catholic my whole life. Shouldn't I have gotten something
before, right?
Yeah. So I kind of tried to take this mentality with me, to go out and be focused on just helping others and being there for them. Mm-hmm. But I mean, as we all know, it's easy to get that high from retreat and be oh, I'm gonna go do everything, but it doesn't always stick with you. So it's I had that strong mentality for a while, but I started realizing this is gonna take work.
Right.
Right when you have that feeling, you just want to go out and you're oh, this will be so easy. I just have to believe and go talk to people. But
it's called zeal.
Yeah.
That's where the word zeal comes in.
So I tried to bring that with me, but I realized I need to keep striving for these emotional moments. I need to keep having these holy moments with God if I want to keep my faith going. So I've still had hardship since then. It's not it's all fixed,
Sure.
But all of these moments, kind of with that as sort of the start and the guide for it, have helped form my faith more and make me realize how personal of a connection we can have with God.
And that personal connection, then you take that, what you get from him, and then take it out to others. It's so many of us just want that. We want this relationship, and we're happy with it. But like they say, it's the vertical part of the cross.
Yes.
Jesus, you and I. But we don't want to go horizontally out to the neighbor. So this is where, you're deepening in that part of it, you and Jesus, the relationship with him. But he's now asking you to step out of that that non-emotional part of you that you said you've held in for so long. You knew it all intellectually. Now it's time to take it to the heart.
Yeah.
And I learned an additional part of that I heard for the first time. It's not only taking it to the heart, but taking it out to our hands and feet.
Yes.
To go from there and,
Which can be very hard, especially if you're not an extroverted person. It's not easy for you to go talk to people. Suddenly it can be God, I don't know if this is the right thing you're asking of me. But it's not about what we want. It's about trusting what God wants and doing our best. And even if we don't feel we have what it takes to do what he wants, it doesn't matter, because he's the one doing it through us.
Yes. Beautiful. Continue then. Let's go on with that story. So now you had your turning point. You had your you had your walking orders. Okay, Daniel, here. Let's get this together. So where do you go from there? Now that you have that.
I come back to campus, and it's I still have that same community, and I sort of started realizing how good of influences they were and how I could ask them for help, have them help guide me in that journey. So I joined in the focused discipleship, which Avery mentioned a little bit, where I was a junior that year. So I had a senior discipling me, and that senior was being discipled by a focused missionary. So it can form this sort of chain. So I just started going into that and kind of having others mentor me in how to mentor others in a way. It's you're teaching someone else how to go out and teach. And I wanted to learn how to teach.
That right,
So I got involved in that. I had several different disciplers over the next year and a half as they graduated or had other too many commitments, because some of these focused missionaries are discipling 4 or 5 people at the same time.
Okay, so that's part. We'll learn that this a little on the next segment. The jobs of these missionaries. Huh? So, but I bet you learned a little something from each one.
Yes. It was interesting to see how different they were in their approach to the faith, and yet how they all still had that faith inside
Still have
of them.
have God as a focus. Focus, huh?
Yes.
There you go. That focus. Sure. Okay, so you have those, and let continue. What's going to happen now? One of them are going to invite you?
Yes, so my current discipler, Andrew, he's one of the focus missionaries that's on this trip to Belize.
Oh, he's here with you. Okay.
Yes, so he was talking to me, he was trying to convince me, and I was sort of unsure. I was thinking, well, I mean, I have to raise all that money to go. I have to use my whole spring break to do that. I have to one of the more difficult things is just the humility to ask people to help support you on that mission. But he was talking to me and just kind of made me realize that nothing I've done on any of my other breaks in college has really been worth the time. I don't remember what I did on my spring breaks freshman year, sophomore year. I probably just sat around and did nothing. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity to come with other people formed in the faith to help evangelize to people of the faith. And it would help me, it would help them, and it would just be a really important experience that I can remember, that I can draw back to later in my life. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll come. And I had to start writing the letters and worrying about the fundraising. And I didn't fundraise enough. So I would have had to cover the extra significant amount. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but one of my roommates was also coming on this trip, and he fundraised $1,000 more than he needed to.
Good for him.
So he used that extra money to pay for mine.
Oh, how generous.
So it kind of helped, that's just what I was talking about earlier. It's about going to others and doing that. And that helped give me another outlook on it of just... That's
right, another boost to this faith, to see someone do that for you. Because like I said, they could have kept that as pocket money. So, that's wonderful. Okay, so that brought you here to Belize. So again, this is your first missionary trip out of the U.S.?
I've never even been out of the U.S. before, even not on a missionary trip. So.
Okay, so this is your first. So then for sure it's going to be memorable.
Yes.
Whether you like it or not.
It's already been memorable.
It has been. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
So when we come back, we'll have them tell us what all they've been doing this week to make it a memorable stay in our country of Belize. We'll be right back.
It is an inescapable fact. Every man's life ends the same way. It is only the details of how he lived and how he died that distinguish one man from another. There was one man who understood this reality and distinguished himself in a big way. That man's name was Ernest Shackleton. In 1914, this polar expert decided to conquer the unknown. He set out into the deep in pursuit of a great adventure, to be the first one ever to cross the continent of Antarctica. This endeavor would truly test the limits of his endurance. He couldn't do it alone. Legend has it, Shackleton took out an ad in 1914. Men wanted for hazardous journey, low wages, bitter cold, long hours of complete darkness, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. He only needed a small crew for this enterprise, yet he received 5,000 responses. 5,000 men ready to die, rather than to suffer a dull, monotonous existence. Shackleton's ad promised them something, a chance to do something great with their lives. Do we dare to venture into the deep, like Shackleton and his men? How are you going to live?
Well, friends, haven't you been impressed by these two stories? Avery's and Daniel's. I have been. I wonder about myself, at what I wish at that early age I could have been touched. I wish there was a focus in my life at that time. I really do. So we'll continue on now, and we let them tell you what Focus is all about and what they've been doing here in Belize for the past week. So Avery, you start off, says, as a missionary, soldier, disciple, focus, whatever it is. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I graduated from the University of Wisconsin La Crosse last spring. And so after that, I joined Focus and became a full-time missionary. Okay. And so what Focus does is, it actually stands for the Fellowship of Catholic University Students. So we are placed on college campuses throughout the U.S., and we're also expanding into Europe now too. And so you don't really know where you're going to get placed. Focus assigns you. And so usually it's a team of 4, and depending on the campus, it can be bigger, but that's the minimum team members that you have. And so this past summer, I found out that I was going to be placed at the South Dakota School of Mines and Technology,
oh my.
Which is located in Rapid City, South Dakota. So, yeah, I moved to South Dakota. I just had met my team, so everything was very new. And so what Focus does is we really teach students how to have a personal relationship with Jesus. And we do this by forming friendships with our students, like really getting to know who they are, what their story is. And we take that model from Jesus, right? Like, he invested in his men around him and lived life with them. And that's really what we do. And that's why we're full-time on campus, so that we can live life with our students. And then we also teach them, about prayer, how to pray. We invite them into the sacraments, invite them to go to Mass with us, to pray a holy hour, go to confession. And then through that, we want to teach them spiritual multiplication, so that when we invest in them, they can learn to invest in other people, so that we can spread to the whole world.
It's always passing it on.
Yep. Yeah.
That's, like John Paul II said, all our popes, evangelizing. It's another word for evangelizing.
Yes.
Yeah? To be soldiers, to go out, to evangelize, to spread the word.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. So it's just, so you're on, viewers, I think you'd like to, for any of you all sending your children off to college or university, most of those colleges would be secular colleges, because the Catholic colleges are just, the prices are so high. It's just not affordable. If you can afford to go to Franciscan, but other than that, you're just going to go where scholarships take you, or where it's affordable. But if you want your children to stay in the faith, have them look up, see if on campus they have a focus. What's it called? A focus
group.
A focus group. Okay. Yeah. A focus group. And some schools may have other groups, but other Catholic groups, huh?
Right.
So, but you want to, we're promoting Focus here on this show. Yes. But they can be anyone. But be aware of that. Viewers out there, any of you all sending your kids off, see if you want them to stay in their Catholic faith, to join one of these groups. Focus would be a good one. Okay, so Daniel, tell us about this past week. What were some of the things you did? You arrived on last week Saturday?
Yes.
Last Saturday. Okay, and you Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. What were some of the things you did on those couple of days there?
So one of the most important things that we've done is we've just gone out into the communities and we've been inviting people into Mass. It's such an easy thing to just walk up to a door and be like, hey, do you want to come to Mass? It's hard to convince yourself to do it, but especially if you have a group of people dedicated, like a mission group here, it can be such an easy thing, and so many people just don't go to Mass because they haven't been invited. They didn't know about it, or they didn't have someone actually come try to have that personal connection with them. And that can be so important, and bringing people into the faith is just being told, hey, you matter, you're important, and I want you to come to Mass.
So you did that. I think you do that every evening, on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Thursday, sort of going off as little groups to different, how did you, is that how you did it?
That's kind of a slightly different thing.
Okay.
Throughout the day, especially on Sunday, but on a couple other days, we would just walk out and walk up to random houses and invite them. But then, especially also on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, we did at night small prayer groups. We would split up and we would go join these groups in different areas that are getting together to discuss like a book about the faith or just talk and pray rosaries and stuff. And we try to get involved in there, help invest them in each other and in God so that they can keep that group going. Because one of the most lasting impacts that we can have on a mission trip is to get a group together and to have them continue practicing their faith.
So, and like everything you said earlier, it's so great when you go in community, when you're together. Doing this alone, it's just, there's no way you can ever do it alone. I mean, you'd never have the courage, anything to go out alone. But when you go in with a group, with a community, and not only that, when you're sort of welcomed into their home too, then they learn from you and you learn from them, especially culturally. I bet you've learned some cultural things. What about food? Have you, Avery, have you experienced any cultural food?
The food, I was really nervous about the food. I'm a very picky eater. But it's been really good. It's been a lot of chicken and rice. So that's been good. Yeah.
But we never get tired of it. We live here, we eat it all the time. And you just never get tired of it. It's like the other day, even when we go on retreats or these functions that they have, the food is brought in, and it's just basically the same thing. But I had some rice and beans at my house, and I said to my husband, it's not the same. The last function I went to, what they had was the pepper, and you just open up the top of that pepper bottle, and that smell of the pepper just takes over the whole room. And even if you're not going to eat much or just a little, just the smell of it, what's the appetite? It gets you hungry. Okay, so doing that, what's something else what's something else you've been doing here, Avery?
So Daniel kind of mentioned the Missionary Sunday, so going out and evangelizing, and then small prayer groups, which has been a very big thing that we've been doing. But we've also had like little projects kind of sneak in. And so some of the things that we've done as well is we went to, I want to say it correctly, Moscow. And we visited the school there. So we went into the classrooms and we really just like got time to like get to know the kids and just like talk to them and just like hear what they're learning in school at that time. And then we got to play with them at recess, which was really fun. I played with a bunch of boys. They were playing football, American. And they were so much better than me, and they were so young. I was like, oh my gosh. And then another thing that we did at that school was some of the students will be receiving Holy Communion and confirmation. And so we got to teach them about what they're going to be receiving. So we kind of split them up into two groups, and also like for the students who will be receiving Holy Communion, we like taught them like how to receive Christ, how to pray afterwards, which was just really beautiful, like to see all these kids just like super excited to be experiencing this. So that was really fun. I know a lot of the missionaries enjoyed being at that school and just being with the kids. And then we've also like gone into a home that was burnt down, and we were able to clean up a little bit, be able to talk to the people whose house it was and just hear their story. We cleaned up a lot of the trash that was left over, it was a really tough experience, but it's really good.
And you're doing it as a group once again. Okay, Daniel, you all came. How many of you all came this trip?
We have 13 people in our group.
And who are missionaries, and who are how many missionaries? How many students?
We have 4 people who are currently focus missionaries.
Focus missionaries, okay. And then so the rest are students.
Most of them. There are a couple people who have already graduated or like were a Focus missionary a couple years ago who wanted to still be involved and come on a trip.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you can do that. So you can be part of it, take off for a while, do something else, but still always come back. So it's something, it can be for life.
Yeah.
It can be for life, huh? You don't always have to be involved, but if you can join up with missionaries, and it would make perfect retreats.
Yeah.
If for someone who's working and really can't attend all the meetings, then come on a once-a-year retreat with a Focus missionary retreat. Yeah. But a priest comes with you all as well, doesn't he? Does a priest?
So usually that's the case, is that you have like the chaplain that you're on campus with, like they usually come with, but unfortunately like none of our chaplains of the Focus missionaries could come. But we do have Bob, who is currently in the seminary and will be becoming a deacon. I think it's this coming summer. So it's been really nice to have him here with us.
Okay.
And then Father Scott has been the one who's been giving Mass and everything. So.
Our Father Scott from Divine Mercy.
Yes, from Divine Mercy. So, yeah.
Okay, so who I see with you is a seminarian.
Yes. Yep.
To become a deacon sometime.
Yeah.
Okay, and you also mentioned that they were getting ready for confirmation as well at some point from Moscow.
Yep.
And I mentioned this last show when I was with the other Focus missionaries, and I'd like to repeat it here. Since we all Catholics have received their confirmation, and we've all forgotten that at that time we were made soldiers for Christ in our confirmation. Remember that, and they don't do it now. I think they still should. I don't think they do. But back then, you got a little pat from the bishop who was confirming you. And that was the significance was a little pain that to become a soldier of Christ, you were entering into God's army, and you were going to be a soldier, and you were going to take a lot more than a little pat, believe me. So if you're going to go into this army of God, believe me, you have to go prepared for the blows that are going to come at you, physical and spiritual. Because that's why I have brought St. Michael the Archangel here on the show, for the same reason, because he's the leader of that that army, God's army. St. Michael is the leader of that army there. Okay, let me just add a few things here. It's just to add for when I did my sort of research on Focus. It says it's an urgency, because the fastest growing religious demographic in U.S. are people who list their faith as unaffiliated, non-religious. That's what you were saying, all your secular friends.
Yes.
They call themselves the nuns. N-O-N-E. I'm nothing. They're just non-religious. 80% of those who leave the Catholic faith do so by age 23. Exactly like you said, college age. That's when they take off. They've been living their parents' faith, but at that stage, like you said, you were choosing, should I stay or should I go? Right there. 30% of those raised Catholic are still practicing. So there are some. I'm happy to say Focus is some of those. So the more we can expand Focus into all countries, and whatever we want to call it here in each country, but with the same methodology or motive or motivation for why we want to focus on the Lord. And then who you impact. You all impact more than 600 missionaries on 125 campuses. More than 24,000 are alumni, like you just mentioned. You estimated 2,340 mission trip participants, nearly 20,000 Bible study participants, and nearly 13,000. This was for the Seek attendees that you all do, that Seek program. So, and these probably are old statistics. I pulled them up from last time. So I'm sure it's a lot more.
It's growing,
So definitely it's growing. So you can see, viewers, how Focus is just spreading as fast. I mean, we do have the secular world out there, but Focus keeps their mission going. All right. Well, just a few more things you did on Wednesday. What happened on Wednesday?
So on Wednesday, since it was Ash Wednesday, I wanted to kind of have like a prayerful, reflective time. We basically had a sort of retreat among ourselves as the mission, because we're here to help evangelize the people here, but we're also here to grow in our own faith and to see the faith that's here. Mm-hmm. So we took some time, we did, like we said, a rosary, we gave our own testimonies to each other, and we just spent a lot of time praying and trying to grow in our own faith and spiritual life.
That's lovely that you take time for yourselves. Yeah. Okay, and then that's where those who didn't know each other got to hear testimonies of the other person. Huh? Well, we've come to the end, but you've done a great job. I mean, thank you for being here in Belize, for all you've done. And I mean, I know I see you all rushing around. So do you get any time for yourselves? Not much, do you?
Not much.
We will rest when we go home.
Okay. Spoken like a true Focus missionary. We'll rest. When the battle is over, we'll get our rest. Avery, Daniel, thank you so much for being here as part of my show, Lead Me Home, and giving your own testimonies of how you two at this young age have come deeper into your faith, have been led back home, and now, more than ever, taking it out on mission into the world. And Belize happens to be one of the little countries that you have chosen to come to. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here with us. Yeah. Viewers, thank you for being here with us as well, for listening to the stories of these two, and to see how God can touch people at all in different ages, at different times of their life, and the way he does it. In this case, it is done through the Focus organization, Focus missionaries, and once again, being soldiers for Christ. So thank you for being here with us. Thank you to our cameramen, Louis and Mark. You will be seeing a different, it's not an evangelisal, a different clip on this show, and it comes from the Focus organization themselves. So that will also help to explain more about Focus. Thank you once again. God loves you. God bless you.